Welcome everybody to another episode of the SRU podcast with me and my guy Will Royal. Today it's pretty sad. We had a pretty sad week if you're an Alabama fan, so that's why we have the hoods on, kind of mourning the the death of Alabama's win streak to Tennessee. But Will, how are you doing, man? I know it's been a hard week.
It really says something when I come into work and someone changed my computer background to Tennessee checkers. But like you said, 15-year winning streak against Tennessee. Haven't lost to them since 2006. It's gone. It's been painful. We'll talk more about it when we get to that game. It sucks.
Yeah, it does. It sucks very much, man. I, I
Um, it
I,
just
I feel
means
bad, even though we are smoking that BAMA pack. But hey, you did kind of embarrass yourself last episode. You brought up the cigar prematurely. You threw the Alabama hat on, and you lit up the Big Game Boomer lighter. So
and the thing is, Big Game Boomer won this weekend, so it's a double pain.
yeah,
But let's just get right into it. New week, new AP poll. First two are pretty cut and dry. Tennessee now up to 3, followed by Michigan State and Clemson. Tennessee, or not Tennessee, Alabama falls down to 6. Kind of what I was expecting. I expected this to be in between the 6 and 10 range after losing to a top 10 team, but only by 3 points. TCU now is in the top 10. We have Oregon in the top 10, UCLA in the top 10, I believe. Um, it's starting to shape up as we're at the halfway part of the season. Playoffs coming in. I think the first ranking's like in 2 weeks now.
yeah,
So some of the bigger risers we see, TCU moving up a couple spots, Utah after their big win against USC, Syracuse after their win over NC State and Illinois. Somewhere all those teams are between 4 and 6 spots. I don't remember which ones. And NC State and Mississippi State fall 8 spots each after their losses. And then we have 2 new teams in the top 25, being North Carolina and Tulane for the first time in a good while.
yeah.
And out is Kansas and James Madison, which are 2 sad ones. As of now, we have 9 teams left undefeated, and they are in no particular order: Ole Miss, Tennessee, UCLA, Syracuse, Georgia, Michigan, Clemson, Ohio State, and TCU. So we had 6 teams who were undefeated last week lose, and they were Alabama, Oklahoma State. Let's see if I still remember this. Penn State. Who am I missing?
Um,
James Madison, Coast Carolina, and USC. So, what do you make of this new top 25? Is this, you think, the right order, especially after all these, crazy games we saw this week?
Honestly, Tennessee, they just beat the number 1 team in the nation.
Number 3, actually.
Yeah, number 3. So I thought they would probably be in the 2-3 range. They did put a big game on their resume for the playoffs. So depending on what else happens for the rest of the year, I don't think Tennessee is safe for the rest of the year because they still have to play Georgia. Have they already played Kentucky?
No, that's next week.
Yeah, so they have to play Kentucky, which is probably a trap game also. But Tennessee being good is very surprising, kind of in a little bit. It's a little surprising. They do have one of the better QBs in the nation. But Bryce Young's injury against Arkansas really crippled y'all for this. I would say for this game, if you agree with me. And y'all starting the game off slow really with y'all in the long run. Because it's halftime, y'all were down. What was the score?
No, at halftime we were tied.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, before halftime, y'all did come back. But if y'all would have played like that at the beginning, if is a huge word, y'all probably would have won this game probably by like 2 touchdowns, maybe. But hey, I like seeing the college football world change around. You don't see Alabama at the top the entire year like you usually do. I like the diversity in the top 25. I was kind of disappointed because I like the James Madison underdog story. We're talking about the upsets for this year. I mean, this not this year, this week. James Madison did lose to Georgia Southern. Georgia Southern's. Did you see their QB stats?
What are they?
38 for 64,
Jeez.
578 yards with 4 touchdowns. That's crazy. 6 to 4 pass attempts in a game is crazy to me. They did.
This was the team that did beat Nebraska, at the start of the season.
It's Nebraska though. When's the last time we talked about Nebraska?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
Probably when Scott Frost got fired.
yeah. But Georgia Southern Sun Belt, the Sun Belt is looking pretty interesting. Like it's looking like they are one of the more interesting conferences. I couldn't tell you what other conference of the Power Five was like not interesting. What Big 12 we've seen the two favorite teams fall down in the rankings. We have two teams that, well, one of the teams we kind of thought would probably be up there, but TCU was a huge like surprise to most of the people in the nation. Pac-12, who would have thought UCLA not being able to fill their stadium up, and they're still undefeated. And we were talking about this before the pod. UCLA has gotten past like all their hard games, except for the week coming up where they play Oregon. But after that, like it's smooth sailing until they play USC.
Yeah.
But what that's Pac-12. The SEC. It's the SEC. It's always going to be like this. You don't really know who's going to win the SEC until the season starts. Alabama just lost to Tennessee, which is crazy to even think about. The ACC, it's Clemson's coming back. There's some teams that surprised us. Wake Forest surprised us at the beginning. A lot of people thought Miami was going to be one of those top teams. They are disappeared. It wasn't even slowly. It happened quick.
Yeah.
Florida State. No one thought Florida State was going to be good. Everyone thought Mike Norvell had one foot out the door. And what other teams have surprised you, Will?
In terms of surprising, at least in my opinion, in SEC wise, Mississippi State kind of came out of nowhere at the beginning, and they kind of declined a little, and they have Alabama coming up. Alabama who just lost, by the way, so expect a beat down. But we'll cover that
When it comes.
TCU surprised me as well. I didn't expect them to come 6-0 already. Syracuse is another one. I didn't expect them to be
My
undefeated.
bad. I forgot all about them.
Obviously there's still a long way to go. A lot is going to happen, but I think going forward, this is like a good, at least for this upcoming week, it's a good slate for what we have in the top 25.
So my last upset game, Kansas, Oklahoma. Big game boomer won. Will he beat you? Kansas, we did see a graphic. Last time Kansas started 5-0, they ended the season 5-7. So it's looking like that could happen. We don't want that to happen, but it possibly could happen this year. But yeah, it's been a great weekend in general for college football. If you do agree, Will, other than the Alabama game, it has been a pretty good weekend, pretty eventful. A lot of overtime games, which is surprising.
But you want to go ahead and kick off our reviews from the games we picked?
Yeah. Let's go with this Penn State Michigan game. It started us off in the morning on Fox. Michigan won pretty convincingly too. Penn State was the number 10 team in the nation coming into last week. Sean Clifford only had 19 pass attempts, completed 7 with 120 yards, which is crazy. 74 rushing yards, 0 touchdowns, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And JJ McCarthy.
across the board.
Yeah. JJ McCarthy he had 0 touchdowns. Also, 24 pass attempts, completed 17 with 145 yards, 1 interception, and 57 rushing yards. I watched this game. Michigan looks good. They look like that Ohio State Michigan game will probably tell us who's going to win the Big Ten when it comes to it, down to it. Um, I actually liked this game. It was a good game to start off with. Um, Penn State's special teams blocked a punt, or did they block a punt? I just know they got a touchdown defensively or special teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great game to start off the weekend with. Will, I don't know if you watched this game or not. How did you feel about this game?
Yeah. And I'm just to say this going in, and I saw this stat right before we started about James Franklin's record against top 10 teams. It's abysmal, to be honest. I think he's like 1-7 now against Michigan or Ohio State, one of the two. And he just signed an 8-year contract, like an 8-year extension to his contract, which I don't know what it is with Big Ten schools extending contracts to coach it or these massive contracts. Because we saw that with Mel Tucker, and now Michigan State's barely above 500. But credit to where it's due in terms of Michigan, they have probably one of the best running back duos in the country, if you look at it. Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards. They had about 300 yards combined on the ground on Saturday with 2 touchdowns each, both having rushing like their longest rushing attempts being over 60 yards.
Yeah.
So realist and like I've been seeing this all day. Like Blake Corum is now in the conversation of being a top 5 Heisman candidate behind CJ Stroud and Hendon Hooker. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, he's been showing out all year. I wouldn't not put him up there. Actually, the Heisman race right now is kind of wide open, but there, CJ Stroud is looking like he's going to be the favorite. There's a lot of quarterbacks that I could say could be up there. Max Duggan, when we get to this next game, he is looking like he could be a Heisman candidate. And he didn't even start at the first game of the year. It was Chandler Morris, Chad Morris's son.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing putting him up there is not a bad thing, but it's not gonna we don't really know because it is like halfway through the season. So once it get down to like week 12, week 10, week 11, then we'll probably see who's going to be that guy who can probably most likely win the Heisman. But right now, I'm not going to pick my Heisman winner, even though I picked him early in the season and he's looking like the favorite. And the team that I said would probably win it all this year, they're looking like they could be the favorite also. So hey, maybe I'm a fortune teller, man. Maybe.
Yeah. Just an FYI, we're now tied on our pick'em records for the season.
Yeah.
Bryce had a good weekend. I did not.
That's what
And
happens when you pick with your heart, man.
yeah, and Josh, I believe, went 4-3 on the week. So
3 and 4, one of those two.
yeah. All right. So our next game up is we're going to the Big 12 for this one, a double overtime thriller. 13th ranked TCU knocking off 8th ranked Oklahoma State in Fort Worth. Spencer Sanders of Oklahoma State went 16 for 36, 245 yards, a touchdown, interception, about 70 rushing yards with 2 rushing touchdowns. Max Duggan went pretty similar stats, 23 for 40, 286 yards, 2 touchdowns. But also we have to, shout out Kendra Miller. He had 2 touchdowns as well.
Yeah.
But TCU is now the last undefeated team in the Big 12, which we did not think about going in.
Nope.
We thought with a new coach with Sonny Dykes, he would be, around 500, 7-5.
Yeah, I did predict him to make a bowl game. I'm pretty sure you did too.
Yeah. We initially thought it was going to come down to Texas, Oklahoma on who's going to win the Big 12, and it's now looking like TCU's in the driver's seat to take that position.
Yeah.
Finish season undefeated, go to Dallas, win the Big 12, get in a playoff position. If not playoffs, then definitely have a New Year's Six bowl.
Yeah.
This is a TCU team I haven't seen in like a long time. Like if you remember when they were still in the Mountain West, they were putting up like these really good numbers. And in the years with Andy Dalton as well, right? They were in transition from Mountain West to the Big 12. But I think this is a TCU team that's gonna do good things, and I'm liking what I see so far. I know they've only played 6 games; they still have 6 more, all coming in from the Big 12, and they still have play Texas and Kansas State. But I'm excited what like. I'm excited with seeing what I'm seeing so far out of TCU. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I am. Hopefully I can go to the Texas Tech game. I will be in Fort Worth because our friend Luke will be in town for the mm, Air Force Army game, which is in Arlington, which is like 20 minutes away from Fort Worth. But we will be in Fort Worth, and we're thinking about doing a doubleheader because that game's going to be in the morning compared to TCU's. So hopefully TCU is still undefeated at that time, and we could probably see a rematch of this game for the Big 12 championship. Don't you think so?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because these are the elite, you would say, Big 12 teams at the moment. Um, yeah, TCU started off the game slow. They were down 24 to 13 at halftime. It looked like Oklahoma State was going to just take off and just go at it for the rest of the game, but they came back with only scoring 3 points in the third quarter, but the fourth quarter, 2 touchdowns, and didn't let Oklahoma State score a point in the fourth quarter, which gave them momentum going into overtime. TCU really surprised a lot of people this week. Um, them building a resume. Hopefully, they win this upcoming week, which they would be beating a ranked team. And if Texas stays ranked, hey, that's another ranked team on their resume. It could really help them make the playoffs. But at the moment, the playoffs looks like it's really hard to get into. There's a lot of undefeated teams and a lot of great teams in the top 10. That's why the 8 team playoff starts next year, or is it 12?
The 12-team playoff, I believe, starts in 2024.
So not next year, but the year after.
Yeah.
So hey, it's going to be a little bit hard for the next 2 years to get in the playoffs, but eventually there's going to be a great playoff format for teams that usually not in the top 4 or usually the outside looking in to get a chance to make it to the playoffs and probably compete for a national championship. I feel like the 12 game playoff will help a lot of these teams, and it's going to expose some of the teams that usually make it,
Hmm.
and they're going to get exposed for not being an actual top 4 team and being a team that should make it every year. But yeah, but TCU, go Frogs. I like what I'm seeing down up there in Fort Worth, Texas. Let's go to this next game, which is the NC State Syracuse game. We did hear right after Will picked NC State that Devin Leary was going to be out for the rest of the year, which helped your boy out because took a gamble picking this game, and at the beginning it looked like Syracuse was going to choke it for me. I ain't gonna lie, but NC State they didn't score a touchdown this game. They scored 9 points, no touchdowns, 3 field goals. Um, for this game, Syracuse won 24-9. Garrett Schrader went 16 for 25, 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 81 rushing yards, compared to Jack Chambers, Devin Leary's backup, 18 for 30, 160 yards, 58 rushing yards, my bad, not five. Um, Syracuse looking like, I don't know if you could say they're looking legit. They did just beat a weak NC State team who basically lost their offense, losing their starting QB. But I'm gonna give it to them. Syracuse is not that bad. We thought they were not going to be that good this year, but they're looking like they could probably give Clemson a run for their money this week coming up. Um, there's really not much to talk about this game just because Devin Leary was injured. I don't know if you have anything to talk about this game, Will.
No, I'm gonna make this very brief because I didn't really watch much of this game because it was the same time as Bama.
Yeah.
But again, like I talked about last week, and we have seen improvements. If the O line improved because they were lackluster last year, then Garrett Trader and Sean Tucker are going to thrive, and they have so far. But that doesn't go without saying, like, Garrett Trader, he's been doing well on the ground, but in the air at least, he's got a good guy in Arana Gazden. He had 2 touchdowns on Saturday. But I think this is where we start seeing the decline of NC State. Devin Leary was the backbone, and like an hour before kickoff, it's revealed he's having season-ending surgery. Do it, and I think this loss kind of just proved that. So NC State is kind of on the down, which we light up a big game movement because that was one of his picks. So, but USS with Syracuse, I think, is coming up this weekend against Clemson, and I believe it's in Death Valley, which is going to make it hard. But it's going to be a competitive game, and I'm excited to see what Syracuse can pull out against Dabo.
All right. You want to go to the next game?
Yeah, and speaking of Clemson, our other game was another one that I uh, picked incorrectly. I thought Florida State would be, come up with the upset against Clemson. That was not the case. Clemson would have gone to win 34-28 with DJ Ungalalele throwing for 3 touchdowns at 200 yards. Jordan Travis still had a good game, 2 touchdowns at 250 yards. But something about this Clemson team is just they're so good, and I'm not gonna go off them saying they're really good because ACC is kind of the weaker conference in terms of Power Five, but Florida State still put up a good fight. Again, they're still doing a lot better than I expected them to be at the start of the season. I still think this was Mike Marvell's make or break year, and he's proven himself. He can put up his weight against the bigger teams like Clemson and NC State and all that. But I think it's going to come down to what we see going forward with Clemson after they make the inevitably make the playoffs because let's be real, they probably are. And I think DJ's kind of got his foot on the ground because last year we're very, pessimistic about him. I'd say he kind of struggled in his first real starting season after the post Trevor Lawrence era at Clemson. But I think now he's got his footing down and he's got a great team of weapons around him. And I think if the pieces fall in the right spot, I think Clemson could possibly sneak into that playoff spot.
Honestly, no one's really talking about Will Shipley. He's
Yeah.
he's been having a great year. I'm pretty sure a career year. He's reminded me of a little Christian McCaffrey, a nice little white running back who can hold his own. But he had 121 yards this week. He didn't have a touchdown, but he's putting up numbers for that Clemson offense, and it's really helping DJ to not have so much pressure on him to be the focal point of the offense. Florida State, all of their losses have been quality losses, if you ask me. Losing to who did they lose to? Wake Forest, NC State, and Clemson. They've they're on a 3-game losing streak, but I can see that ending. They do play Georgia Tech this not upcoming week. They have a bye, but the week after that they have Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
So hey, I wouldn't be surprised if Florida State's pick it back up and have a great rest of the year and come back and being like maybe an 8-win team, 8-9 win team. I like how Mike Norvell has coached the team this year, and I can't wait to see if he can keep doing this year after year, getting some good recruits in. I know they lost Travis Hunter, who's having his first start full game this upcoming weekend for Jackson State for their homecoming that has been announced by Travis Hunter, I'm pretty sure yesterday.
Yeah.
So Florida State, I'm liking what I'm seeing down there in where are they? They're in Tallahassee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, down there in Tallahassee. So yeah, let's go to this next game. The next game is Mississippi State, Kentucky. Will, Will. We got disappointed by Mike Leach now, man. We thought Mike Leach he was, starting something nice down there in Starkville. Going to probably give most of these teams a run for their money. And this week, they showed their true colors. The colors I've been saying that they have had all year. Will Rogers did not play as well as he's been playing. He's still leading the nation in passing yards, though. But he had one touchdown and one interception for 203 yards, 25 for 37. And Will Levis looking like he's pretty solid. A lot of people are not talking about him as much as they were at the beginning of the season, but he's had a solid year this year with 230 yards in this game, one touchdown and one interception, going 17 for 23. But what's his name? Chris Rodriguez. Chris Rodriguez Jr. 30 carries, which is crazy. 30 carries for one running back is wild to me. With 196 yards and two touchdowns. Will is Kentucky making a bounce back to get ready for this Tennessee game that they have to play in a few weeks?
I think this is a good starting point for them. Yeah, they do play Tennessee, not this weekend, but the upcoming weekend. And having Will Levis back definitely helped. Last week they were without him and they lost. And yeah, they lost to South Carolina. And this is kind of like what Kentucky wanted. They were looking for Will Levis to come back and, have him be the top player he is. Like, everyone's been saying he's gonna be a first round draft pick, and this game right here kind of proved that for him.
Yeah.
Will Rogers on the other hand, yes, he underperformed. It's not what we're used to seeing in the air raid offense with Mississippi State, and they have a lot of ground to cover this weekend against Alabama. But I think Kentucky's kind of on that right track. I don't know who they play this week off the top of my head, but Tennessee next week. That's going to be the deciding factor on this season.
Yeah, they have a bye week this upcoming week.
Okay, yeah. And also like you said, Chris Rodriguez almost had 200 yards with two touchdowns. Like, I think this Kentucky team is bouncing back with Will Levis, being fully healthy. All right. Last game I'm gonna lead off with before we get into my eulogy. And that is the game, probably one of the better games of the weekend. I know we've been saying that most of these games, but this one, if you watched it to the end, was incredible. Utah coming out with a barely win over USC, 43-42. Caleb Williams went 25 for 42 with 381, 5 touchdowns. Cam Rising had 30 for 44, 415 yards with 5 combined touchdowns, including 3 on the ground. I have been saying this all year, and and this is probably why I'm going to reiterate it. Cam Rising is my dark horse, and it showed. Like, this barely win over USC. Yes, this was the USC team that lost Jordan Addison for the game. But still, they still had good weapons. Like, Travis Dye still had a good game. He had a touchdown.
Yeah, Mario Williams had 145 yards.
Michael Jackson III had a touchdown as well. I just had to throw that in there because it's Michael Jackson.
Josh Fallow had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, even that.
14 yards.
But like I said, USC lost Jordan Addison for I don't know how long. That's going to affect them, at least because you have to remember, the Pac-12 South not only has Utah and USC, but UCLA, who is undefeated going into Oregon this weekend. So USC is like kind of hoping that Oregon wins that, like beats them, and they have a shot at this.
The
But
thing
this
about
was,
the Pac-12, they are like sneaky top three conferences this year.
yeah,
Actually, two. I would say they're the second best conference this year. Would you? Um, most most of their teams, like their top tier teams, are top 15 in the nation. What?
yeah. Obviously SC would be first. I would have said Big 12 with the likes of Michigan, Ohio State, but the rest of the conference is kind of lacking, falling apart.
Yeah,
Like the Big Ten West is wide open right now.
yeah,
And then you have ACC, Big 12 kind of just being there with like one or two teams being actually having a shot at the playoffs. But yeah, I think with Utah, Kyle Winnington put up a really good game for his team. This is a team that like lost. Did they lose last week? Last week, 2 weeks ago, they lost kind of a important game, but they bounced back,
yeah,
got the win at home against a top 10 team, and they're gonna hopefully use that momentum and try to because they still have no wait they lost to UCLA,
yeah.
but I still
They have,
think like
yeah, they have
Utah
Oregon second to last game of the season.
yeah, they have Oregon left, but I still think like Utah is going to be they're in good hands for the remainder of the season.
Yeah. For me, this game, just because the Pac-12 plays so late on our side of the country, people don't really watch it unless like you're at home chilling because most people are just drunk at a bar or drunk at home, blacked out or something at the time. So if for actual college football fans who watch like try to watch as many games as possible on the weekends, like me and you, most of the time, um, this was a great watch. I did watch most of this game. I didn't really catch the end of it. I'm pretty sure I might have went to sleep and you texted
Beginning
me.
was
I
good.
saw a text from you
Um,
the next morning. But yeah, Mario Williams and Jordan Addison was a dynamic duo when it came to yards compared to well, let me let me stop there because the guy on Utah can't say his last Kincaid, my bad.
yeah,
Dalton Kincaid, tight end, had 234 yards for a touchdown, which is crazy. He's flying under the radar for great tight ends. Everyone's looking at Georgia's tight end, Brock Bowers, who's been tearing it up all year. People are really not paying attention to Georgia this year either, and they're like what they're number one in the nation, but they hadn't really played anyone. I would say,
yeah. Like I'd say the only quality win right now is Georgia. I mean, Oregon.
yeah, and they destroyed them and made it kind of makes Oregon a little shaky for the rest of the year. How bad Georgia beat them on the first game of the season, but all I'm gonna say for this game, this USC Utah game, is that this probably one of the better games of the year. I would say this week probably had the best games of the year for sure.
Yeah. Speaking of, you just want to get it over with our last game.
Do you want to get it over with because y'all got I wouldn't y'all didn't get mollywopped, but y'all walked in a little high chested like we're about to keep this streak going. 15 years ain't nothing. Let's make it 16. And guess what? That didn't happen. Y'all lost 52-49. We'll go ahead and tell us what happened.
Um, few words before I start this. Fire Bill O'Brien and fire Pete Golding because that game was beyond atrocious on the play calling. Yes, we saw Bryce Young throw for almost 500 yards in his first game out of his injury, but that doesn't give you any right to start throwing the ball when it's a tied game, 2 minutes left, and we still have 30 yards to get at least within field goal range. But did he listen and actually run down the clock? No, he kept passing and failing. And guess what? Tennessee, we missed a field goal. Tennessee got the ball back, got down within like 2 seconds, and kicked the game-winning field goal. By the way, first time we've given up 50 points since 1907 to Sewanee, a team that's no longer in Division One.
Yeah.
But Jameer Gibbs still had a good game with 3 touchdowns, and I'm gonna give credits due. Hendon Hooker threw for 385 yards and 5 touchdowns, and Jalen Hyatt with all 5 of those touchdowns too. Putting on a stellar performance. But oh, where do I even go from here? Like it is just first time that Tennessee fans were able to tweet off iPhones that they beat Tennessee.
That sink in, everybody. First time tweeting on the iPhone, texting on the iPhone, saying that you beat Tennessee. That's crazy. And guess what, Will? They act like they didn't been there before. They took down the goalpost
They took down the goalpost and
and
threw it
started
in Tennessee.
walking the goalpost around Knoxville.
They threw
Exactly.
it. They threw it in the Tennessee River. But yeah, I'm pretty much done with my case. Like I could go on, but I'm tired. Like
Well,
these last few days have been
I'm going to
drinking.
talk about this again.
Okay, well, this is where I sign off for the night. I will see you.
I'm just joking. Um, Me watching this game, I was on the same time as Arkansas game, so I was flipping back and forth. I'm gonna get to this Arkansas game after this. It was a great game. Was I happy to Alabama lost? Yes. Was I happy it was to Tennessee? No. But guess what? We smoking that Bama pack. We got the cigars. I called my guys. I called my Tennessee guys. I called Jack Hampton, called Josh O'Connell, who told you, Will, you're embarrassing yourself. And guess what? You did. That's all I gotta say. You embarrassed yourself, man. You embarrassed yourself, and it's sad to see. Will, I don't expect this from you. You're an Alabama fan. Y'all win. Y'all are winners.
Hey, we're still in contention for the SEC West. We just have to beat Ole Miss and LSU and Mississippi State. Auburn, I'm not worried about because it's Auburn. And then Georgia and TCU, the winner of that game is going to go on win the East, and we'll have ourselves our game in Atlanta.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see if y'all can get a rematch.
That would be something.
I actually don't. Well, y'all get a double rematch, honestly. Get a rematch from national championship, get a rematch against Tennessee.
Yeah.
But
And
before we log off, I want to talk about the Arkansas game. We finally did it, Will. We finally spread out our offense, threw the ball, and guess what? KJ had a amazing, probably the best game he's had all season. Let me pull up what stats he had.
friendly reminder now that we lost to Tennessee, our longest winning streak is now against Arkansas.
Shut up. That should have that should have been broken last year, but we're not going to get into that. KJ threw 40 passing yards with passing attempts, which is crazy if you know Arkansas's defense. Not defense, offense. We're a run offense. He had 367 yards with 5 touchdowns, and he had probably one of the best college football plays of this year, where he broke I'm pretty sure it was like 3 or 4 BYU defenders and threw a pass down the field to Trey Knox, who had a great game also. Arkansas is finally looking like the Arkansas everyone thought they would at the beginning of the season. Defense is still trash though, but guess what? I can live with that. I can live with our defense being trash and we're having great offense and putting points on the board like we should. But other than that, I have nothing else to talk about. So thank you everybody for watching this episode. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, turn the post notification on, and we'll see you all Friday. See you later, Will.
Deuces.